We know how hard it is to run a business during pandemic time, even if your business sales was not impacted and your payroll for sure is impacted. In this session, we bring to you a realization of what could go wrong, which is already half the answer, how to fix it. Folks, do you realize that the pandemic not only bring us a new way to do business, it has also brought a lot of complexities for our payroll taxes. You probably, if you are a small business owner, you knew what I'm talking about. And I'll give you an example. I have a client and he operates a small bar and deli. And this is the type of business got impacted by pandemic a big time. And they only have 2 employees, the owner and another person. Okay, listen to this story. And they, of course, starting 2020, everything is nice and rosy. The deli place has already been on the market for 5 years. They are looking at another great year, just like before, and better. But March 27th, they got shut down, and all the way to June 1st. And during this shutdown time, and the owner don't have money, so he did not pay the first quarter 941. So there you go. We touched on issue with payroll. And then they received the PPP. And when they receive the PPP, they need to continue doing the payroll. And then now there you go. And they started to make a payroll payment based on the PPP amount. But that only lasts for 8 weeks. And then by the time the John wants to open up the store, the only 1 employee came in and caught COVID. So he was sick. And after he got sick, and John got trouble with the business, so he shut down again. And then here you go, once Sam got better, supposedly to come back to work, and John just learned that Sam won't come back because he get better pay on the unemployment insurance than coming to work. So there you go, and his payroll is in the water again. So John doesn't even know what's gonna happen now. I don't have PPP, and I don't have money to pay payroll taxes. My business couldn't even open even though I could, and because my only employee caught COVID, and after he recovered, and he stayed with unemployment, is more money, is safer, so why come to work, right? So that is the dilemma with our small business. And then finally, John hired someone. And this person come on board goes, oh yeah, I want a payroll tax holiday. Of course, Trump had an executive order and told people that they can have payroll tax holiday. And small business owner didn't even know what they're talking about. They're talking about 6.2% of saving from the taxes they pay. So employee want the employer to not withhold that amount. Now, PPP forgiveness application need to be submitted, and John is struggling with the payroll taxes, wondering how to do this payroll thing so that he can qualify for forgiveness. And no more funds to run payroll, and a payroll holiday, and also John don't know whether he's qualifying for retention credit. He heard of that. Retention credit is a big deal, and he wants to qualify for that. Then he also heard of payroll deferral, all of these things. I am just giving you a very small business struggle with payroll. So now, what all about these payroll things? Let me explain to you what they are from policy standpoint. Once you understand, oh, that's what that is, then you already know how to treat it. And you will know that, okay, fine, I am late, but what's the consequences? And I'll show you where to find how to calculate your consequences and the ways to get away from the penalty, from the late charges, and then we go from there, right? So that's our today's goal. So we know this is a very difficult time, and nobody really understood how things are running, but we're gonna make the best of it. Best out of the fiasco, right? Here, payroll tax holiday. This is something that a lot of employees or people you hire would talk about, because on August 8th, Trump president and announced payroll tax holiday. What he meant by saying that is every employee, starting from September 1st, we're already at the end of September, folks, and some employees should be getting this already, okay? So what Trump wants to do is the employee's paycheck, you remember the paycheck comes in, let's say Sam get paid for $1,000 a month, okay, from the bar and the deli place. So out of that $1,000, the John's supposed to withhold 6.2% on the Social Security amount. Remember? So that is the Social Security rate, right? That's what the employee would pay. That's that portion. We're not talking about Medicare, Medicaid. We're not talking about withholding income taxes. Of course, if Sam have 5 dependents, you probably don't withhold anything on income tax. You're only going to withhold Medicare and also Social Security. Social Security is the big part of it, 6.2. So the payroll tax holiday basically says you are not going to withhold that. Employer, small business owner, President Trump said, you don't withhold that and you let me have it. So in your tax submission on 941, you are not going to submit that 6.2 out of the employee's paycheck. So employees getting 6.2% more cash into their net pay. So the payroll holiday was announced on August 8th. And the fiasco started because everybody was crying about how difficult this can be implemented. Of course it's difficult because you as an employer, and sure, you don't have to, you listen to the executive order, so you will give the 6.2 to your employee. What happens if the employee leaves you in the middle of for the rest of the year, or they leave you at the last day of the year because that executive order for the 6.2 is from September 1st to December 31st. What if your employee left you on the last day of the year? Are you the one responsible for paying that, or your employee is responsible for paying that? How are you going to make them pay? They went to the new employer's place, and do they supposed to know that they didn't pay the 6.2% from September to December? So it's practically a nightmare for small business owners. If you have to do that, knowing that it is a nightmare in the making. And even if your employee stayed with you, January come 2021, pandemic could be in the very hot time, right? We are anticipating pandemic not getting better, getting worse. And can you imagine at that time, you tell your employee that, oh, well, I have to withhold more from you now because your 6.2% saving is due right now. Because it's not a write-off, it is a deferral. That holiday, you have to pay it back. So with that, you really want to consider, are you going to get into that? Can you talk to your employee to say that we know that is your right? We appreciate that you know you're right, but administratively it's so difficult. It is going to pull my hair out to get you the 6.2%. So 6.2% of a 1,000 is a $62 for the whole month. So is that such a critical amount for the employee to get, or maybe not? So it depends, right? So we can't answer for employees, but as a business owner, we need to know the consequences. So this is the fiasco of payroll tax holiday. And the big payroll company, if you happen to work with those big names, and when you call them, tell them that one of my employees like to take the payroll tax holiday, and what they will tell you is that we're still in the process of implementing it. We're not ready. So you can't even do that. The only place you can get this one implemented, it is the small CPA firms or CPA firm that you can see people face to face and you can call them, you know, Ying, and you can call goes, I want to do that. You know what is this good about? It is actually really good for business owners. If you are a business owner, you know you're not going to run anywhere else. And if you need cash, you should do that holiday for yourself. So that way you save some cash, you can put it back into the business and pay your employee more. And at the same time, you know it's deferred to the future. And you know what? I am doing it because I need that cash flow and to run the business. So anything percentage I will take advantage of. So I'm not shy of doing it for myself. But for the rest of the team, it may not be a good idea. So this is what you would take home with. Payroll tax holiday, now you know what that is, and consider it for yourself. But for employees, talk to them and know that is their right to ask for it. And if they're asking for it, I don't think you have a right to say no. And then you implement it and making sure that you take care of what happens if your business go belly up in January, and who is going to take care of this payment. So you really need to put that payment somewhere. Tell your employee that it is due on January. So it is due for the whole September to December. That's quite a bit of money. And for Sam, because he saves $62 every month, so September, October, November, December, 4 months. So 62 times 4, we're 62 times 4. So we're looking at $248 times 0. And in January, he has to pay it all. Okay, so that is so much about payroll holiday. Let's talk about payroll tax deferral. That is another fiasco. Okay, so we finished one, we're getting to the number 2, payroll tax deferral. This is not coming from executive order. This is coming from CARES Act. What it says is the employer, and remember employer has this Social Security match goes into the paycheck. It says that as an employer, and you don't have to pay that. You can put it together, pay 50% in 2021, pay the other 50% in 2022. That's good news, okay? And when can you start? March 27th. Okay, I have that on the slides. March 27th to December 31st, 2020. And your 66.2% of Social Security taxes matching dollars doesn't need to go in to be a payment. You can save that cash. And you probably ask me, Ying, did you do that? Of course I did that. Of course. Why are you not doing that? Didn't you need money to survive pandemic? If the answer is yes. Of course, if you are in industry where you actually thrived over the pandemic time, don't consider any of what we're talking about here. And just continue to your business. Payroll taxes is not something to be messed around with because there's so much penalty, right? Knowing that there's 2 major penalties related to payroll taxes. Number 1, late payment penalty, and for filing it late. Number 2, late filing penalty on the amount, so is interest charge. You have a late filing penalty and the interest charge. So make sure that we don't go that way, and we try not to pay any penalty. And I will talk about penalty in a moment later because I want you to know that during the pandemic time, the government is very understanding of the situation. So you really have a you have a better chance to waive, to get forgiven for that penalty charges. So not interest, you got to pay interest. If you hold on to government money, you don't pay, and you use that in your business, you have an interest charge, that's normal. But this payroll tax deferral money, no interest, no penalty. So basically, you hold on to your employer per portion of Social Security, and you can put it back to your business. So this is CARES Act. So it says that those deferral And we talk about the payroll tax holiday. That's the employee side of the Social Security. And this is employer side of Social Security. Employer side of Social Security, you should do that starting from March. And if you didn't do that, you can go back to fix your first quarter to make sure you have that amount reduced for your next payment. So that way you keep it. But of course, you know you are due 50% next year, December, the following year, December. I am so sure, I guarantee you pandemic not gonna be there next December. So we will be all okay and we can save cash, right? And for this payroll deferral, and you fix your quarter one because you got your March 27, 28, 29, you got a few days there, okay? Then your quarter two, the whole quarter, your quarter three, the whole quarter, and the quarter four. And that could be a lot of money. If someone runs payroll around 100,000 a month, we're talking about close to $7,000 saving on every month's payment. So make sure 7,000, not 12 months, but about 9 months. So 9 months times 7,000. So we're talking about $63,000 cash flow you otherwise don't have. So that's a good one. And I hope that at this point, you are clear with the two things. Payroll holiday is for employee, and the payroll deferral, a payroll tax deferral is for employer, but both are play with Social Security. You can imagine Social Security Administration are sitting there are not happy because the payment is not going to Social Security. But there are so many seniors died, so I think they made money out of people get killed by COVID-19. And someone on the internet was saying that is planned because Social Security gonna go bankruptcy. That's why they killed all the seniors. No, that's not the case. Just for fun. Okay. All right. Our next one really impact the payroll. It is the PPP. All right, the Paycheck Protection Program, that PPP. Okay, let me explain this to you why it is impacting your payroll. All right, you have to pay the PPP amount out of your payroll expense, right? So if you had a payroll expense, you used PPP to pay, and you cannot owe that payroll taxes. You cannot be like, oh yeah, I used the PPP, but I'm not gonna pay the payroll taxes. So if you don't pay 941 and you got PPP, when we try to abate your charges, your penalty, interest, IRS is gonna say that no, we are not going to help you because you literally got a PPP dollars and you're not paying taxes. You should. So PPP takes away your excuses. You got a PPP, and at that time, 8 weeks or 24 weeks, folks, and you have no reason to not paying your payroll taxes properly. And also, when you apply for PPP forgiveness, folks, the bank gonna want to see you got all your taxes in order, you got all your paycheck cleared out, and otherwise is not forgiven. Otherwise it's become a loan. So here is what I further want you to understand. If your PPP is forgiven, the portion of payroll that you paid out of PPP amount, that is not your expenses anymore. You cannot take that amount, reduce your sales, because that is paid by PPP, is forgiven. So it goes out of your book, offsetting PPP. So you got income from PPP, you got your expense from PPP is net to zero. So in your tax filing, you got your sales, you suddenly has a portion of payroll you cannot deduct. So you may say that, well, I didn't even make much income. How come I'm paying more taxes? How come? That's because you got PPP and your payroll was reduced by so much, you made money. So you end up paying income tax. So folks, if you got PPP, you need to do tax planning. Very important. You don't want to running poor than paying taxes in 2020. So that's why next Saturday I have a tax planning session, because tax planning is going to be the norm of year 2020. Just like wearing face mask. Do you wear face mask? I do. My face mask is not very good looking, so I'm not showing you. But you wear a face mask, that's how surely you should do tax planning. With that, and you can deal with PPP properly. PPP takes away a lot of the benefit that you could have. Oh, it's a good thing because it's coming in at the time we're struggling. So I know it is, I'm grateful for PPP, and we got PPP, and PPP pays for salaries, and so we get by through the month. And the hardest month for community CPA was April. For a lot of people was April, because April was kind of our most busy month. We never struggle in April. Are you kidding me? But in April, it's like a desert. We were like, people are hiding. You know, it's like we're going through some train wreck and everything just gone. And luckily, shortly after that, we didn't get in the first round of PPP. So that was scary, right? So in April, I have done things that later on I don't qualify. For example, in April, I did another payroll thing. It's called employee retention credit. That's because I don't have PPP, so I do employee retention credit. And then come around in May, you got PPP, then I disqualified myself from April. And it's like such a fiasco, and I have to fix what I did, reverse it, and redo it. So there's a lot of that going on. And a lot of our clients end up in the same boat. So knowing that this PPP had brought to us a very complex payroll filing in 2020. And you want to be really careful with what you do with PPP. What you submit to the bank is better be done correctly on your payroll journal. That means your payroll needs to be run properly. And we actually have an increased number of payroll clients coming to us, because those large payroll chains, they got this 1-800 number, and when they want to do payroll tax holiday, when they want to do payroll tax deferral, when they needed employee retention credit filed, there's nobody on the other side to take care of you. I mean, the people who are online with you, they don't understand what's going on because the knowledge came down too fast. And you want to work with the firms that literally their own operation is in the trench as well. So that way they understand. And we teach people from what we know ourselves, from what we learn from other clients. We're definitely the practical answer hub. We have answers for practical issues. So now, so much of a PPP, I'm telling you, I did tell you that if you got PPP and you got forgiven, that's what you do, right? You offset your PPP money with your payroll expenses. You don't get deduction on your tax return, okay? But what if you got a PPP and it is not forgiven? Or you don't know whether it is forgiven or not because your bank just drags. And by the time you close the year, you still did not know whether you were forgiven or not. And if that is the case, and your payroll can be deducted because you already run the expenses, the PPP is like a loan. When the PPP is a loan, everything you spend should be deductible. So I want you to know the core difference. If you got forgiven, your payroll related to PPP amount not deductible. When you got it as a loan, yes, it is deductible. Just make sure you know that. Then our next one is also our last piece of payroll fiasco. And this is employee retention credit. And a lot of people don't know about that because when they receive the PPP, they disqualify themselves from employee retention credit. Employee retention credit is actually a huge benefit as well. And retention credit, this one is what we call refundable tax credit. Refundable tax credit just means that if you pay taxes, you can get refunded by offsetting the tax amount. So to understand this very simply means that if you pay 941 taxes, you can get your money back by implementing employee retention credit. Just like the name suggests, is you keeping employee. The name suggests that you are keeping employee retained. You're retaining employee, you don't let them go, then you can have that credit. So that credit starts from March 12, 2020, all the way to January the 1st, 2021. You need to file a form of 7200. To make it really simple, if you have an employee, about 20 employees, I'll give you an example, and your retention credit on the quarterly basis should be about $80,000. That's the general number that you can keep in mind. But if you received your PPP, that doesn't exist for you. Okay, so make sure that when you get your PPP, you don't look into that. But there is another program where it takes care of if your employee is sick from COVID and you pay them. But that program mainly for employer with more employees. I couldn't for sure remember the right amount. I believe it is over 100 employees. You are subject to that, otherwise you are not. So most of my clients, they do not subject to that. So you don't have those kind of required payout to happen. So you don't need to process retention credit. But in general, if you got PPP, employee retention credit doesn't exist. But if you did not get PPP for whatever reason, for example, you did not get PPP because your business is new, but pandemic make you booming, make you thriving. You actually did a good business. You're hiring a lot of people, and but there is certain eligibility of, maybe you're partially suspended. Even though you are thriving, you're partially suspended because of the executive order. As long as you qualify for what I listed here as eligibility, and you are actually entitled to this, you should apply. And if you're not sure whether you're entitled to it, the best is pick up the phone, call us, and let us evaluate who you are, what you do, and how much you would get it. Don't miss out. Don't miss out those credits. They are literally cash in your pocket. Like I said, if you have more than 10 employees in the company and 10 to 20, the reason I have the number because we have done number of them, and 10 to 20 employees, average payroll around 40, then you're actually getting 70 to 80,000 back each quarter from your 941 payment. So if your 941 payment is 100,000, you only pay 20,000, you get the rest of it back. You don't need to pay it back. It is your credit. Just almost like when you file your individual taxes, you got the child tax credit. Same thing. You get it. You don't pay it back. So that is the last one we have related to payroll, the payroll differences in our system during the pandemic time. Remember, we talked about number 1, payroll holiday, number 2, payroll deferrals, number 3, PPP, and number 4, employee retention credit. So as long as you know these names, if you can just take home with these 4 names with you, and you can talk to your payroll processor, and you can talk to your tax preparer smartly. They would know that what you're talking about, and then make sure you implement that. If you look at this, goes, wow, you know, nobody I know can really answer these questions, you have us, come on. And you come to the our channel to really learn about us. And right here, I actually want to give you a couple of pointers in terms of related to the 4 credit. I want to lead you to the website. So this is the 941 form, that the old form 941. I want you to recognize that, because that is where those retention credit come from. Payroll tax deferrals, employee payroll tax holidays, they all come over here, okay? So you need to get familiar with this one. This is the old one before pandemic. And you see, it's 2 pages. You sign, you're done, right? And then the new one is actually had a much more content, because all these things were implemented. So the first page, then they got a second page with this section. This is all about those credits, and we'll be filling into this section. And then they continue on part 2. So they got this much extra for 941. And then you also have what I talked about. Remember, I talked about 7,200 when you have employee retention credit. That's a new form created for COVID-19. Okay, brand new, and it's a brand new name too. Okay, so this form, and it's a 1-page form, then you apply for credit. If you already paid 941 taxes, but you know that you can go back to fix it to get the credit that pay you back, right? 7,200. And this is a notice I want to show you. You know how when you have questions related to taxes, you go to Google and you type into your question, and you got a whole list of people come up, right? I will tell you that never ever go into any website but irs.gov. I want you to know that that's a good place to look for your answer. I want you to look at this. You know, I'm not going to go into really deep, but I want you to know that all the penalty and the charges are under this particular page. There's only a few pages right here. You know, there are people making career out of this because they know exactly what kind of notice is for what charges. For example, that there is a charges for 6662 right here, accuracy related penalty. So if you get audited and the auditors give you that penalty. So let's say you did something wacky, like myself. I did employee retention credit in April because I didn't get PPP. And I didn't get PPP. How do I know I'm going to get it? Nobody knows we're going to get it, right? So I already went on to do retention credit. Then I got PPP in May. And now I owe taxes. So I have penalties. And I go into here to remove the penalty because I have a reasonable cost. Not because I don't want to pay you, it's because I don't know what my future holds, right? So that is the place that I want you to know that you can come in to write to IRS and give the reasonable cost. Maybe one of your family member got COVID-19. You don't even know life is even existed on earth or not. Why would you even care about doing anything, right? So use that to remove your penalty. And I also want you to know that you see the interest charges, the percentage of rate, beginning of July 1st, 2020, did you see that? Is 3%. There was very few period would be 3%, kind of like that. And overpayment is also 3%. That means if you overpay, they pay your interest back with the same rate. So that is actually become a law on January the 1st, 1999. So whatever the IRS charge us, if we overpaid, they pay you back too. So fair game. But this is where I want to say that, sure, I can never cover all the fiascos we have in the system. I can never really resolve your issue just by talking to you. But I want to tell you that you always have a way to waive your penalty if your mistake late payment was not caused by willingly disregard of law and oh, I just forgot. Forgot is not a good way to say it. Oh, I don't speak English. No, not a good way to say it. And you know, if you have a reason, like I had a reason, okay? And if that happened to you, never hesitate to try your luck by writing a letter to IRS to tell them what happened. Let them forgive that charges. Don't just pay it. Really exercise your right on that. So I hope this webinar is somewhat helpful to lay down some foundations for you to know what fiascos we are facing, but at the same time, knowing where you can get help to get that resolved. And if you run into payroll tax holiday issue, you know how to talk to your employee. And if you run into payroll deferral issue, never deferred. I didn't know that. Do it now, right? And if your PPP is stuck and it's become a loan instead of being forgiven, and here, Community CPA is your right source to ask for help. We're here to help you. And if you didn't get a PPP, please don't let that employee retention credit go without being noticed, and really take advantage of that. I hope I will see you again